in his jealous sky, when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold.
Hi, I'm Logan Wells, and welcome back to my kitchen. I am the singing chef and homemaker, and welcome to another edition. We are going to make some apple pie, all-American baseball, hot dogs, apple pie. We're skipping the baseball and hot dogs today, though, although today is the last day for the Indians to play down at the stadium, and I'm missing that, darn it. Because you know what a sports fan I am. Okay, anyway, you're going to need very basic ingredients here. Apple pie is so simple to make. Everybody has their version. I found mine when I was first married years back in this very, as you can see, it's been very well used, Better Homes and Garden New Cookbook. And I think it's kind of funny because one of my daughters, I'm not sure whose writing this is, but when they were about like 8 years old, they took a pen and they scratched out perfect apple pie and wrote Mom's recipe. So it's a pretty basic recipe, and like with a lot of recipes through the years, you just start experimenting with some things and try to improve upon them and try different things for your family, what they like and don't like. People have always mentioned when I make apple pies, I've taken them for Bible studies and desserts for places, and even entered them at the Cuyahoga County Fair, and have won prizes for this recipe. And I'm going to share my secret with you. We have a tree in the backyard. Actually, a sad story. I had a tree in the backyard that was over 15 years old. Jonathan Gold, I believe it was. And used to give me a lot of really wonderful apples for pies. And over the years, because of all the wet summers and winters that we've had here in northern Ohio, the tree was planted originally in a swale in my backyard, and all that wetness, it just finally, when it got really big, the weight of it was too much, and one day I found it back there, tipped over. Rest in peace. Anyway, we planted a new one last spring, and this year it actually gave a lot of apples for its first year producing. I felt so sorry for the poor little thing. It's just, you know, it's only about yay high, and it's got about 5 branches, and they were loaded with apples, so it looked like a little umbrella. I was like, help me, pick me, please. So a few weeks ago, picked some apples and made a couple of pies, and I'm having some company tonight, so I'm making apple pie for dessert. First thing you need, obviously, is some apples. And my secret to this recipe is don't use just one variety of apple. Mix it up a little bit. And I have found that the best mixture is to use good old Red Delicious and some Macintosh, because those are nice and crisp and they just have such a wonderful taste. And then of course your nice tart Granny Smith apples. So with that mixture, some of them being a little more firmer, tart, mixed with some sweetness, and some of the softer apples, when it all cooks together, it's awesome. So we're going to get to peeling our apples, and then after those are peeled, we're going to cut some up, and then I'll check back with you and we'll figure out what we need to put in to mix in with those apples to put into the pie crust. So we'll be right back. Alright, so I've been peeling apples, and you can do that with a knife of course, but I find these peelers to be the easiest. And get yourself a nice sturdy peeler. I remember when I was very young and making pies, we had those old cheap steel peelers, and they used to clog up and break, and so invest in one of these. They're only about $8 to $10 at one of your department stores. Alright, we got that one. What I'm doing is I'm saving these peelings here, because when I'm all done, I'm going to put them in one of these little mini composters I found in a store. And what you do is put your vegetable peelings, eggshells, coffee, things like that, anything that can be composted, just put in here, right here in your kitchen, and then when it fills up, I walk it to the back and put it in the big compost pile back in my garden. The reason is, this is really good for the soil, just like the peels of vegetables and apples and fruits are good for you. They hold a lot of the vitamins in them. Unfortunately, they don't fare well in pies, so we have to peel it. But just as it fortifies our body, this fortifies the soil. So take those, and we're just going to put them in there, and we'll transfer you out to the garden and see you in the spring. Okay, so we've got all our apples peeled, and they're ready to cut up. And I like to use a good amount of apples. Don't skimp on the amount of apples that you put in a pie. I know this recipe says 6 to 8 pared, cored, and thinly sliced. I tend to use a little bit more because I like my pie to be nice and high. So just start cutting these in half, quarters. I'm going to cut out that icky core. Boy, this one's tough. What's going on with that apple? And then just slice them. And you don't want to slice them real thin, but you don't want nice, real thick pieces either because they won't cook through. And then keep them all the same size so they all cook evenly inside your pie. Oh, man, I'm telling you, this one, I've never had that happen to me before in my life with an apple. So I'm just slicing. And you're going to do this with all of your apples, and then we'll come back after that and I'll tell you what to put inside this bowl along with your apples. Okay, so we've got all of our apples, this nice mixture, nicely paired in a big huge bowl. And you want to get, use a 9-inch pie plate. I find they have these really cute pie plates that you can find at like Target, Walmart, and all those places. And they're beautiful, but they usually come in 10-inch size, and none of the pre-made pie crusts usually fit for those, and it just doesn't make, I just can't fill it as well as I can using a pre-made pie crust. I know you can make your own crust, I've tried it in the past, it's fine, but for a time saver, I use the old pre-made refrigerated pie crust. And Pillsbury, they should be sponsoring me. I would use the Pillsbury because I've tried some of the other brands at the local stores, the generics, and they're just not as buttery or flaky. So stick with this one because you're going to get the best crust out of this. Alright, right now we're going to put our ingredients and mix them in with our apples, and we're going to start off with a cup of sugar. A generous cup of sugar, because this recipe, as I said, was for using 6 to 8 apples, and because I did a little bit more, let's have a chunk of sugar in there. I'm going to just kind of overdo that a little bit. There you go. As you're cooking through the years, you start to learn. I remember one of my boyfriends when I was a singles mother was trying to teach, no, it was his grandmother that was trying to teach us a recipe, and she'd be, you take a pinch of this and you throw in that, and we're like, no, but how much? How much? You know, we need measurements. She's like, well, you just know. And I'm like, no, I don't. But you do start to, after so many years of cooking, you kind of start to tell how much in, but when you're first starting, stick to the recipes and do the measurements. Okay, so we've got a little over a cup of sugar in here, and then a dash of salt. And this recipe also says you can use a little bit of lemon juice in there if the type of apple that you're using maybe wasn't tart enough, but since I've got enough of a mixture of some pretty tart apples in here, I'm going to skip the lemon juice in this. We're also going to use some cinnamon. Take this off. And again, this calls for a half to a teaspoon of cinnamon. And again, since I was generous on the apples, I'm going to use a teaspoon and a little bit more than that. Alright, and then here's the other secret. This recipe says to add about a tablespoon of all-purpose flour. I find that with this many apples and when it cooks, if you add more flour to it, you're going to get a nice thicker, the juices, if you don't use enough flour, when you cut into the apple pie, all the juices kind of run real thin. You want to make it that nice, thick, gooey kind of filling inside, and your flour will do that for you. So, I'm kind of, again, guesstimating here, but I'm going to use a good one like that. 2 heaping spoonfuls of that. So, that's what it looks like. And we need a dash of nutmeg, which Logan forgot. Alright, and we're going to mix this up and then prepare our pie crust.